In just a few minutes, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and CIA Director John Ratcliffe are expected to brief the Gang of Eight on possible Iran strikes. Is it a good idea, though? Today's briefing follows a warning from Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane, according to multiple outlets, which report General Kane has told Trump and his top officials that a military campaign against Iran could carry major risks, including the potential for a long-term conflict. President Trump called that reporting 100% incorrect on Truth Social, claiming General Kane told him if we go to war with Iran, quote, it will be something easily won. Joining us, Colorado Democratic Congressman and ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Intelligence and Special Operations, Jason Crow. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Let's talk about Iran. What are the risks?
Well, the risks of a wider regional conflict are extremely high. The risks of spending billions of taxpayer dollars on more endless conflict are almost certain for this president. You know, this president doesn't see a problem that he doesn't think he can bomb his way out of. 7 different countries bombed in his first year in office alone. Americans are pretty fed up and tired with endless military adventurism. Donald Trump campaigned as an isolationist, and he's governing as an interventionist and an imperialist, right? Americans want affordable housing. They want affordable health care. They want their groceries to actually be affordable so they can support their families. And this president is just going to war and conflict after conflict after conflict.
If he does decide to strike Iran, is there any reason to believe that trying to do regime change? By the way, he retweeted Mark Levin, who was advocating for regime change. If he tried to change the Iranian regime, could it be as, and I say simple not because it's simple, but just to compare things, as simple as what the U.S. did in Venezuela? Can you go in, can you remove the head of the regime, the Ayatollah, and leave the rest of it in place and see change?
No. That's the answer, no. Right? And this is not Venezuela, actually. There wasn't even regime change in Venezuela, so let's correct that. They actually took out one dictator and replaced it with that dictator's hand-picked successor. So the regime in Venezuela actually remains the same. They've done nothing in Venezuela. And so let's talk about broader regime change. What in our recent history, what in my lifetime would suggest that regime change and nation building is a core competency of this country? Right, we spent trillions of dollars, thousands of American lives, hundreds of thousands of lives changed drastically. And by the way, all on the backs of the American working class, kids like me, folks that I grew up with, because when the elites in Washington bang the war drums and pound their chests and talk tough, it's people like me that have to get into airplanes and tanks and pick up rifles and do the tough thing. So excuse me if I bristle a little bit when a 5-time draft dodger like Donald Trump talks about how tough he is when a 3-time combat veteran like me actually has to go and get it done.
Does he need to go to Congress to approve these strikes, to do anything in Iran?
Absolutely, because I've seen nothing that would indicate an imminent threat from Iran to the American people. Let's be clear, I won't hesitate to protect the American people when we have to do that. Right, that is what the military exists to do, to protect Americans and American interests. But as a member of the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee, I've seen no imminent danger coming from Iran. This is Donald Trump wanting to be tough and act tough. And the problem is he has a false sense of confidence right now in the use of the military because there have been some well-executed missions recently, thanks to the professionalism of our service members. But he now has a false sense of confidence, and that is very, very dangerous because sometimes these missions don't go well.
If it is a war of choice, and analysts argue it would be a war of choice, as you just argued, that Iran is not an imminent threat to the United States, is this the time to do it? And I ask that because the Iranian regime is weaker than it's ever been. The protests hobbled the regime. There are more protests that are bubbling. There were already strikes on the nuclear capabilities. Obviously, it didn't eradicate those capabilities because Witkoff is saying that they're a week out from a nuclear bomb, even though Donald Trump said they obliterated it a few months back. I mean, if the U.S. were to strike, were to try to intervene, is now the moment?
Well, let's look at our recent history, right? We should be careful what we ask for because our recent history would suggest that the alternatives, when we end one regime, the alternatives sometimes aren't better, right? Sometimes they're worse, and it pulls us into a much deeper and harder situation, number one. Number two, the reason why the regime is actually weak right now is because the people of Iran, the Iranian people, are protesting, organizing, and fighting for their freedom. They're the ones doing it, right? So there are ways that we should support the Iranian people, right? Because this regime is a terrorist regime. There's no doubt about it. They have attacked Americans. They've killed American troops. They've killed people that I've served with. No doubt that this regime is a terrorist rogue regime. But the question is, should we be the ones that end it? And then if we do we buy it? And are we responsible for it? Or should we be supporting the Iranian people indirectly with the tools that we have in their quest for freedom and democracy, right? Because they're the ones that are being killed in the thousands right now, being put in prisons, right? So it's unfortunate to me, actually, that the Trump administration just spent the last year dismantling many of the tools, the soft power tools of aid and support for people yearning for democracy around the world that we would rely on in a situation like this.
Congressman Jason Crow, thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate it.